the big thing that I was going to talk about today is just documenting everything that you're doing, where you're sending out your packages or you have calls that you're making. You want to keep track of all of it, especially using Follow Up Boss and, the pipeline manager that Danny's provided to us, because when we're busy and now you are very busy right now, especially in spring, and I see how much you're doing, you have to document everything and make sure you're tracking it all. Otherwise, all of the balls that you're juggling in the air start to fall. And that's when you start to feel like things are out of control. So you just have to really focus on keeping that system going and tracking everything and over communicating with everyone.
Awesome. I like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
It's
Is there,
important, right? Because ultimately, the more business someone does, like the harder it gets to keep track of, and then it's gonna fall into the client's experience, and like that's the whole reason why we're here. So it's like you can't have that. And I've seen some lawyers' businesses go into that kind of direction, and it just makes it painful for the client. It's like, that's the opposite of what we're supposed to do. So, yeah, makes
yeah,
sense.
absolutely. And, you know, when you're busy is when it's the most important that you're tracking everything, right? Because all the things
Hmm.
that you did running up to that point to make you busy, if you're not continuing tracking and logging and setting up your calendar and making sure you know the things that you have to do that day, if you just let that go to the wayside and then you've gone through all those clients, you haven't done the next step for what you need to set yourself up so that you're busy for the next time, right? Where if you're consistent with it and you're, as painful as it can be, especially as a salesperson and you want to be out there negotiating, doing your deals, as painful as it can be to be consistent and track those things, and it's not the fun part of the job. Uh, that consistency is absolutely key, and just doing the basics and keeping on top of those items so that your business doesn't have those spikes. It's so that you have that nice arc throughout the whole year going through the market.
Awesome.
Um, do you have any other things that you wanted to go over?
Maybe at the end, if
Sure. Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
get
So,
some questions that
yeah,
come up during the presentation. Yeah.
perfect. Okay. So I'll go through everything here that I've got. So, every single thing you're going to want to track in your systems, and even being on the team, some of this can be geared towards single agents, some can be geared towards team leaders. But when you're working within the team, there's a lot of stuff you'll be able to pull out of the systems as well and hold it up to our systems too, and see what we've got going on. So a big thing that we all start with is lead generation, right? So you need to know where your leads are coming from, and then also need to know what your clients are looking at too. So especially for you in particular, when you're in Follow Up Boss, if a lead is coming to you, where did it come from? So were they on a website that they were searching for properties? Were they looking for a home evaluation? Is it from realtor.ca? Is it from a sign call? So where is that lead generation coming from? And then not just that, because we can know what a home evaluation is, or if they're, doing an online search, but what's the promise that they're seeing at the beginning of the ad? What did the ad say to get them to click on it, so that when you're speaking with them, how are you tailoring that script and that conversation to them? So, years ago, we ran into an issue where we had hired a lead gen company and they were funneling leads into our CRM. And we were just picking up the phone and running through for the home evaluation. But we were having a lot of upset people on the phone because they were being promised an instant home evaluation, which wasn't something that we were able to provide. It was an American company that had offered us this lead generation tool. And the clients were upset before we even got on the phone with them because they weren't being given what they were promised. So it's really important to know from the very beginning, what is it that they're seeing? And that's part of your system. Systems can sound really annoying to sales reps and people who want to be out there negotiating, but it's the framework of your whole business. So, what is it the ad that they're seeing? If you're paying a company because they're setting up searches and having traffic being driven to a search website for you, and you have buyers that are looking for something, what is it that they're clicking on before they're filling out their information? And then once they're filling out their information, then what's happening? Right? So you want to have, is it going directly into your CRM? Is there any manual work that you're having to do? And then how quickly are you reaching out to them? So to have a system in place that you're calling them within 5 minutes, do you have automated text messages that are going out to them right away? If you're not able to get them on the phone, is there a follow-up email that's going out to them? All of those steps are really important in that lead generation process so that you know exactly what's happening. And then from there, when you get the conversion, are you tracking, okay, how many people are actually answering the phone? How many conversations are you having with those people? How much money are you spending on that lead source? So then how many of those appointments are converting to the sales and how much money are you making from that lead source? Because if, there's a lot of real estate companies and teams and agents who spend a certain amount on their lead generation and then they're making a certain amount at the end of the month and they're like, oh yeah, things are great, obviously that's working, but they actually have no idea how much money they're making from that particular lead source. So that was one of the first things I implemented when I had joined the team. We have a spreadsheet, and so every single deal that comes in, and we track, is it a sign call, is it a realtor.ca, what lead source is it? Did it come from a sphere? Was it a past client? Was it a referral? Or was it a paid lead source? And then we track how much each one of those lead sources is making in a year. So do I spend more money on that lead source to make more? Or do I have to cut it entirely because it's actually not, it's costing you more money than it's making for you. So that's something that you want to definitely take a look at. And that can be, right at that root of things. And then when you're going through those leads that are coming in, how are they being tagged? Are they being tagged so you know that it's a buyer and a seller right off the bat? How much information are you getting from that online form? Or how much information are you putting into your system to know at a later date when you have to contact them? Because if you're speaking to 30 people, are you keeping track of who they are and making those notes? And, when you have a system like Follow Up Boss, the AI is able to tell you what those next steps should be as well, based on the conversation you had with them. And then you want to segment that database too. So you have your leads, and then you want to have your prospects of the people you're actually speaking with, and you know what their timing and motivation is. Then you have your segment of your active clients, the ones that you should be communicating with, that you are showing them properties or you have a listing signed with them. And then, of course, you want to have your past clients segmented as well and not forget about them, because those are people who already want to work with you, who have enjoyed the process, and who are your fans who could be sending you referrals or repeat business. So that's going to be a gold mine for you as you continue to grow your business and you keep on those relationships. And then, once you have somebody who wants to meet with you, what do you do next? So how do you treat them in that process? So do you just show up at their house with, uh, some people don't even have a presentation. Do you just show up at their house and you try to convince them why it would be good to work with you? Or do you have a package that you mail out ahead of time, a follow-up call to make sure they've remembered the meeting, then your presentation and how that whole thing lines up? And then what's your follow-up process with them after that point as well? Once they sign the contract, then what do you do? Are you just dropping it off on an administrator's desk? Or are you following all of the steps of the information that you need to have in the system so that you're prepared to market their listing properly and so that their experience is better instead of just flying by the seat of your pants and moving on to the next thing? And then when you're looking at that as well, how much of that work are you doing yourself, right? So if you have an administrator or a listing coordinator who's entering the information for you, Are you install? I know a lot of new agents or single agents will install the signs themselves. They'll put the lock boxes on themselves. Maybe they attend all of the different appointments and the photography appointments to make sure everything goes smoothly. Some of it you have to delegate that and hire a sign company to put that on so that you're leveraging your time and you have a system. And then you have a whole process as to what's happening with those signs and when. Same goes for your staging consultation. What's happening through that process and how involved are you so that you're able to be on top of things with your seller? When does the photography get booked? And then what happens at that process? Where is that in your whole line of things that you're putting together? And then once the listing's on MLS, what's your communication like with your client? A lot of the times, agents will put things on MLS and then just leave it and hope to be able to give information to their client. But, every week you're able to tell them this is what's happened in your district while you've been on the market for a week. This is the number of showings. This is the number of people who've checked it out online. You don't want to be caught flat-footed when you can have that systematized process with the communication with them so that at the end, they're not saying to you, well, I never heard from you. They know exactly what's happened that whole time so that you can put in your process of potentially a price reduction. You've been able to give them those reports and that information so that instead of just calling them and you haven't spoken to them in 5 weeks saying that, oh, I think we should reduce the price. Instead, you've been able to send them the information the entire time on a timeline. So then you can it's easier to have those difficult conversations instead of calling them out of the blue. Same thing for your open houses. So, we can post the open house on MLS and then are you just waiting for people to come? Or are you putting the sign out at a certain time, having a certain number of signs out in the area pointing to your open house, posting it on social media, preparing your kit ahead of time, door knocking the neighborhood to get people to come to the open house? Sometimes we'll hear people say, oh, I just had a bunch of nosy neighbors who showed up. But those nosy neighbors could have someone who's moving into the neighborhood or could be a seller themselves. So every single time you're getting in front of someone, you have to think of it as an audition for their business and you have to be prepared beforehand with your system and the process. Um, and, you know, take an inventory of everything that you're doing in your business because every single thing can be systematized so that you can leverage your time. And then that will help you if you need to hire a VA, you need extra support, you're training a new agent, or you're attracting someone to your team or your business. And then that's where you're able to start looking through your results as well. If you're not tracking everything, there's no way for you to know, I've increased my business this much. Maybe I've decreased my business. What's my average sale price? Am I hitting the right commission targets? Am I hitting what I need to do for my goals for the year? Then you're able to backtrack too. Do I need to make more calls? Is this the right time to leverage and hire someone else? If you're not tracking anything and putting it through your system, you're really going in blind and you have no idea what it is you need to do or not to do in order to be more successful. And that goes to how many calls are you making in that day? How many appointments are you booking? And really digging into those fine details. A lot of it is a numbers game. And if you're not picking up the phone and making those calls, how are you able to track back what you need to do to hit your results in a better capacity? So, there's a lot of us will say that we feel that something is happening in a certain way versus actually knowing. And, we've gone through that firsthand where we suspect that something is maybe not working correctly or we should be spending more money on it. And then as we do a deep dive through those numbers and actually pull through the system, then we realize that no, actually, our feeling is incorrect on it. And the only way for us to know if it's a return on investment or be able to see if it's something that we need to double down on or pull is by actually following the system and running those numbers and those targets. So, we've got basically every single part of the business we have in a system. So the way that we handle our documents, the CRM, how things funnel into the CRM, what the follow-up plans are in there, tagging, We, talked about how we have to track everything that's going on, your speed to lead, your conversion rate, your ROI, every single detail that you have in there. And at first, it can seem really daunting, but just take one small segment and then go backwards from there. What's your communication system like, and how are you following up with people, or is it just falling to the wayside? And then, of course, once you start getting, the easiest way to start with stuff is the old school with paper checklists or Excel spreadsheets and going through that. And then from there, once you get used to doing the basics, you can start adding in automations. Adding in automations before you have a system is backwards. You want to start with something that you're consistently able to do every single time you're putting it through your system. Think of it like an assembly line, just going from A to Z. And once you have those basics down, then you're able to like add in the automations, potentially AI, that type of thing. But if you don't have that in your system yet, just start with the fundamentals and build on there. And, while you can systematize everything, we do it right down to our hiring and how we go through the checking the applications. There's certain criteria that have to be met. I have everything that is in a spreadsheet, but I rank, how they spoke to me on the phone the first time. Are they able to fill out the forms that I sent to them that I need them to do? Um, Going through that whole system and ranking is able to weed out the people who wouldn't be the right fit for you, especially now in this market. We had posted for a listing coordinator, and I had 120 applications in the first 48 hours. So like, how are you gonna go through all of those? And I know you can feed them through AI, which is great, but then I'm thinking, well, maybe it's gonna miss somebody that could be a really great fit. And so I still went through all of the applications, even while getting the AI summary of things. And, we were able to weed it down pretty quickly by looking at different criteria and the way that they communicated with us. And that was because we had built our system beforehand to know exactly how we were going to run them through the system. So that's, in a nutshell of different things that you can look at. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or any systems that maybe you want to discuss on how you can make those better. Did anyone have any questions that they wanted answered?
Not really. I mean, with our team, it's a really good system, and then like the training from Danny and Steve and Chris is like really aligns with all of that, right? So it's just about kind of getting better at it, and making it better, more of a habit.
Exactly. And being consistent with all of it. And, everything that you're doing and we're putting through is part of all of that system, right? And the training has a system behind it as well. So, we do have a great setup, but all of that we're constantly always trying to tweak and make better. I have actually on my to-do list today, I have 3 different automations that I want to put into place so we can leverage the time more and get more things done. And it's always just a constant evolution of looking back into it and then how can I improve that whole process from A to Z, but finding those little spots that you can fine tune and build from there. So
Awesome.
thank you for being here for the training and the webinar. And if you had any other questions offline, I'm happy to take those too. And yeah, hopefully, even if you implement one small thing into your system and your processes, it will get easier and it will get better.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no problem. Have a great day.